The guy says that it has been about 10 years since he graduated from high school and moved from the village to school. Trips in an overcrowded, shaking carriage to work appeared in his life. There is more work itself. He had to devote all his free time to her. The guy says there's no way he's going to be that kind of boss. When he leaves work, he barely makes it to the last train. Even on weekends, he didn't have the energy to read his favorite historical novels. Day after day it was only harder. He missed his village. When he woke up one morning, he felt strange. Looking at his hands, he realized that they had greatly decreased. His body also shrank. He did not understand where he was at all. He came up and looked out the window. Immediately a maid called out to him. Her name was Till. She addressed him by the name of Wang, saying that it was dangerous. He apologized to her, saying that the view of the garden was beautiful. It fascinates him. Till asked him how he knew such difficult words, because he was no more than 2 years old. Van didn't understand anything, because he was almost 30. He thought about it, because yesterday Wang was an employee of a Tokyo company. The guy didn't understand what was going on at all. How did he even have any memories of his past life? Was this really the reincarnation? He turned to Till, asking if it was his maid. She replied in the affirmative. His full name was Van Nefertio. Till was surprised that he could pronounce his last name. She noted that he was very smart. Wang also named his father Jalpa Marquis Fertio. He was right, although he rarely saw them. Van wondered where they were. He was taken to a huge dining room where his whole family was. Mr. Wang even ate vegetables well. He sat quietly, didn't spill anything. Everyone was happy about it. It seems that having been reborn in this world, Wang remembered his past life. He still couldn't believe what was happening. The carrots were quite tasty. The father turned to Yardo. At lunch, he asked children under the age of 10 what they would do, and at dinner, he asked how everything went. It was like this every day. Yardo said that today he will study fire magic and the order of battle. It was either a tradition of children or of the aristocracy. Sesto was also asked. He said that he would study magic. Usually, Van was not asked, but today it did not pass him by. He was asked what he would do today. He replied that he did not know much, and therefore he would first like to study the cultures and history of this country. Everyone was very surprised. The father started laughing. He said that they spoiled him a lot because he was the last child of her wife Mira. However, he grew up to be a great kid. He said he thought that Wang's fire magic was as strong as his and his wife Mira's, and the family was in good hands. My father said that he would expect great results from him in 6 years on the magic test. My father was hoping for Van. In this world, magic was commonplace, and therefore it matters which kind suits you. 2 kinds of aristocrats are required. The magic of the 4 elements, fire, water, earth, and wind, to protect the house and territories, or healing magic. Having any other magic is shameful. His father and brothers possessed the magic of the 4 elements, but from Wang's point of view, other types of magic, depending on how they were used, could also be useful. Dom Ferito, as a family living in a militaristic state, specializes in military force, especially in the attribute of fire, to be powerful in attack. In this world, gunpowder was an unnecessary thing. Most weapons were swords, bows, spears, and magic, of course. There are 3 continents and many different islands in this world. Wang was now in a huge state in the southern part of the continent. In the kingdom of Scuderia, the royal family, which has been ruling for 300 years, has been gradually expanding its possessions. The current king heads the aristocracy to capture small states and expand the territory by conquering them. It seems that during the war, Wang's father was elevated to the rank of marquis. They had only one port through which ships sailed, and at the bottom of the ocean there were terrible monsters waiting for them, waiting for an opportunity to attack. If the strait was narrow, then they could have problems. He thought if there is magic, then there are animals that look like monsters. Till also talked about the races. There were many of them. Dwarves, elves, and others. Most often they are isolated from others, which means that people hardly see them. Another maid said that Till was too difficult to explain. She asked Wang if he wanted to sleep, but he said it was all right. He asked about it because he wanted to know himself. He was interested in it. On the contrary, he asked if Till was tired of him. They replied that everything was fine. They considered him a child prodigy because he is only 2 years old. He asked about the magic tools. Magic crystals, some types of metals, could store magical power. The tools are created depending on the magical abilities. After that, he asked Till a question about magic. She answered him from her own knowledge. Spada approached Van. He asked how he was doing in learning letters and numbers because he was only 2 years old. He was a capable butler who supported his father for many years. Van had never spoken to him before. He insisted that Wang answer how much he had already memorized. He replied that he could speak and understand him well. In that case, he asked about the numbers, about addition and subtraction. He showed him 2 and 3 fingers on his hands and asked how many there were in total. Wang replied that there were 5 fingers. After that, he showed 7 fingers and asked how many fingers would be if 2 were removed. He replied that it was also 5. The spotter replied that he would train with him twice a week. In this case, he had a hard time. This was clearly not what a 2-year-old child should be doing. There was too much information. He learned to read and write within a few weeks. He's learning a lot of new things. The system of aristocracy, the management of the kingdom, so he spent 2 years of his life studying. Wang was currently training with a sword. He was very fast. He had great reflexes. He liked fencing. Despite this, Till defeated him. Others felt that Till had insulted him, and the master should have punished her. She admitted that she had committed a mortal sin by insulting him. He just gave her a snap. As expected, he only had fun with the maids for half a year. By the time he turned 5, training took place every day. He could already fight with young future warriors. He went to judo and karate at school, so he liked martial arts. Wang said he would win if he hit first. It was quite entertaining. In judo, you need to knock the opponent off balance, and in karate, guess the movement so as to deliver an effective blow. These 2 items could also be used in fencing. His opponent was 10 years old, and his arms and legs were bigger than Wang's. However, he was a child, so all his attacks were predictable. They have their own habits, watching which you can win. After the victory, everyone praised Wang, saying that he was very talented. Unlike Sesto and Yardo, Van was easier to talk to everyone. The deputy head of the knights, Dai, asked him. He called him one of the strongest members of the Marquis' family and asked him to show his hands. He complied with the request. His hands were soft, without calluses. He said he would train more when he grew up. He thought that Wang was losing and practicing at night. It's hard to take into account, but he'll study harder and he won't get tired of the sword. Espada is said to have charged him 3 times as much as usual. He said that if he wanted to practice with the sword more, he could turn to him. This old man was very passionate about his studies. He noted Wang's talent. He needed to learn the basics and gain muscle, and then train daily. Then he would become the greatest knight of the kingdom. He liked the sword, but he didn't want to give up his studies either. There was nothing to be done. At least he would train him. He asked him to be more lenient with him because he was still a child. He made him do 100 push-ups, jumps and squats each. As well as running, Van needed rest. The knight said that he would rest later. Wang sat down on a bench to rest. Some guy came up to him and told him not to mess around, but to clean up the shop and sit outside. Till praised Wang, saying that he had done a good job. He thanked her. Till noted his daily efforts. But since he was reborn in this world, something has been happening every day. Here he could experience a sense of satisfaction that he could not have experienced in the previous world. He planned to become a better aristocrat and enjoy a happy life. It's been 3 years. 3 years ago, Wang was called a child prodigy, and now his father called him a loser. He told him that if Wang didn't disappear from his family, then he would have to get rid of him. 2 years ago, Wang was 6. He looked at people passing by and was surprised by their number, saying that he would never get tired of watching them. The maid asked where he wanted to go. Because he suggested taking a walk, she suggested going to and seeing the market. 6-year-old Wang still remembered his past life. Here he was reborn into the 4th son of the Marquis and began to be called a child prodigy. Every day, Wang has to go through the hell of studying and fencing lessons. The 12-year-old recruits were nowhere near Mr. Wang, although the difference in their age and physique was very large, and Van studied what adults usually study. It was very obvious. Till noted that he was also a genius at fencing. Perhaps one day he will be able to become better than all his brothers and take the place of the head of the family. In the world of aristocracy, everyone was on their own. Money, status, reputation, the winner took everything. Becoming a winner can change the future very much. An attempt on the younger brother of a hopeful was a common thing for the aristocracy. Unfortunately, Wang couldn't say that he had a good relationship with his brothers. They could kill him without hesitation. Simply put, if he wants to become the head of the family, then the chances that he will be killed faster increase. He couldn't live such a happy life. Van turned to Till. He asked her for a walk. He wanted to become an ordinary child. Wang decided to become a slacker. He didn't know how to have fun here, because even in his previous life he was a very hardworking person. He was brought to the city. He decided to start with shopping. He saw a lot of people and Mary's company, which had branches all over the kingdom. It was just huge. He saw the child. He was tied up. Then Wang asked why he was here and why he was tied up. The father of this child said that because of his debts, he was selling him into slavery. In the law of slaves, if there are 2 cases of sale, due to debt or crime. However, poor families have long been selling children who cannot feed them. The father transferred the debts to his son in order to turn him into a slave. He looked terrible, but he didn't even give a voice. Van thought that this was because slavery had become something common. Everyone was already used to seeing this. He found it disgusting. Some girl recognized the famous prodigy Wang, the son of the Marquis. Her name was Rosalie. Van got into Mary's famous company. Rosalie said she would give him everything he was looking for. The child's father was petrified when he heard whose family he was from. Van turned to Rosalie and asked how much the baby was worth. She asked her father about his magic and gave him a price of 3 silver coins. My father started arguing that they were giving 5 coins in another store. After all, the more a slave can work, the more valuable he is. But Rosalie stood her ground. No more than 3. If he were a girl, she would double the fee. There's not much use for a little boy. The father started insulting and beating the child. Wang tried to stop him because it was his son. He just told him not to interfere. But Rosalie was against it because no one would buy it that way. He said he had no intention of selling it to Rosalie. He asked his son to get up, saying that they were going to another store. Wang abruptly said he was buying it for 5 silver pieces. The father questioned whether Wang had money. He certainly had them. He approached the boy, asked if he was injured and if he could get up, held out his hand and introduced himself. His name was Kamzin. Wang said he was free now and could go wherever he wanted. But it was a bad idea. The maid told him about it, so he decided to take him home and look for a job for him. The Marquis is unlikely to allow anyone to stay in the mansion, only as a slave to Wang. He asked Kamzin if this would suit him, and he agreed. To begin with, he decided to buy him clothes. Because he was with him now, he thanked him, and Rosalie said that they needed to sign a contract and asked for his hand. The contract was that the slave mark would be on Kamzin until the contract was terminated. She was a contract magician. He thanked Rosalie. She said she would see them off. But first, Wang decided to buy Kamzin clothes. Rosalie began to help him choose. She advised him on clothes that are usually bought for slaves, but he did not want Kamzin to look like a slave. Everything was all right now. At the castle, Wang was approached, saying that the deputy head of the knights was looking for him. He asked me to say that he was not there, but the head of the knights knew that he was already here. He offered him gloves to hide the mark, but he replied that it was not necessary. He replied that it connected him with Van, so let her be in plain sight. But Wang said he bought him gloves, so let him put them on. The head of the knights entered Wang's room and addressed his slave. He said there were crumbs on his face. He ate something, but Kamzin didn't understand what he was talking about. He was just Mr. Wang's slave. He started looking for Wang, but Kamzin didn't say anything. After all, it didn't belong to him. It takes courage to say that, the knight said. In that case, he would train him instead of Wang. He should be glad of that. So he began to be lazy for the sake of his bright future. He wanted to be thought of as an ordinary child, not as a child prodigy. If Kamzin got tired of training, he was ready to replace him. Mr. Wang had already turned 8, which meant that his magic test would be conducted soon. My father was looking forward to this moment in order to find out the result. Someone said they wanted to see Wang as a lord. Someone assumed that he had fire magic. The whole Ferdio family had fire or wind magic. Wang did not possess more than 1 element of the 4 elements. He possessed production magic, magic that allowed him to create things and objects. It was often called the most unsuccessful kind of magic, because there is alchemy, where you can prepare elements. Imagine in your head and create, for example, a sword. It was impossible to create anything more with this magic, because even a lot of magic power is spent on weapons, while other people create them without any problems. Inventors and blacksmiths don't need magic. Since the age of 2, Wang has been doing everything so that he is not considered a child prodigy, and his brothers did not kill him. But he did not expect such an assessment. All aristocrats are expected to know the magic of the 4 elements, and in the Ferdio family especially the magic of fire. The eldest son Marcia inherited the wind element from his maternal grandmother, and although this element is acceptable to aristocrats, the middle and younger brother who possess fire magic scoff at it. Among the aristocrats, the kind of magic was very important. Wang was also a child prodigy. My father did not understand how he was born with industrial magic, because his wife and he had fire magic. He was the last child. The mother was weak in body, but strong in magic. She died in childbirth. His father had high hopes for him. My father took out his sword. He said he would start over. He had high hopes for him and in vain. There was no place for a child with industrial magic in the Marquis's family. He said he would have to get rid of him if he didn't disappear from the family. Marcia's older brother stood in front of his father. He told him about a remote village at the end of the territory that is difficult to defend. He offered to leave her to Van. The father asked why he would do that. He began the story. There were about 100 people living in that village. They are not engaged in production, although the mountains in the north are full of resources. There was also a hostile kingdom nearby. Although it was far away, there was a fortress that was used as a defensive base. In other words, the village could become a base for training in the expedition. This is the territory that my father got when he became a marquis. He liked what Marcia suggested, and it is unlikely that the people living there were loyal to the marquis's family. It would be good to send a family member there. Wang was appointed the master of this village. He told him to go as soon as he was ready, but he didn't expect anything else from Marcia. He turned to Wang. He said that his father and brothers put a lot of pressure on him because of wind magic. Van probably felt the same way. He had sent him there recklessly. He had the right to be offended by his brother, but he thought Marcia had helped. Otherwise, he would have been imprisoned, killed, or his tongue would have been torn out and sold into slavery. He said that no matter how desperate the situation was, the opportunity that Marcia gave him would not be wasted. Marcia didn't understand how he learned it. His mindset was like that of an adult, and he thought deeper than himself. Till had been bragging about his achievements for a long time. He said that the marquis who sent him to the border would regret it. Marcia hoped that he would at least help him a little. Till resisted, saying that even without magic, Mr. Wang was a very smart and wonderful aristocrat. Even that wasn't enough for them, and they sent him to the village. He thanked Till for her concern and said he was looking forward to his departure. He understood one thing. Away from home and all this aristocratic life, he would be free. He really hoped so. As a host, he may not do much, but he will have a lot of time. It was necessary to think about what he would do in the future for his quiet and happy life. He will make the village such a place. Aristocrats are the most ordinary people. Despite the pompous speech and excessive pride, they run with their tails between their legs and giving priority to the interests of the authorities, completely forgetting about the people and their danger. Aristocrats simply look down on people, especially adventurers who count from place to place. Manhwa was looking for an escort. Maybe he's a good guy, or maybe he's a headstrong aristocrat who despises their kind. That's exactly what many people think of aristocrats. The man asked why they had accepted the request for his escort. It was just that there wasn't much choice if they wanted to stay here. The man's name was Ortova Ordo. Wang also introduced himself, full name with last name. He thanked the company for accompanying him. He noted that the guy looked strong, just like some kind of hero, and his weapon was huge, probably heavy. The heavier the weapon, the more powerful it is. After which, Wang left them, leaving them perplexed. Everyone was very happy, because they thought they would accompany the most ordinary child. They wanted to stroke him right on the head. But the girl said that you should not forget about politeness. There was nothing wrong with communicating with adventurers either. The knights couldn't go with them, so Marcia hired 10 adventurers for them. All the things were loaded into 3 wagons. At first, he and Kamzin had only 1 carriage, but Till joined them. She screamed that she had to go with them, because she was his personal maid. The fact that Wang's magic was not suitable for the aristocrats preferred to hide, and everyone who knew about it was ordered to remain silent. But there was no way to shut up some of them. The head of the knights also said that he would take the swords and go with him to train him there. Wang objected, because he couldn't use the knights as an escort, but he just waved them off and took a couple more guys with him. The butler also told Jiao that he wished to retire earlier. He didn't object. It had been a long time since he had rested in the countryside and had already prepared a carriage. The butler asked Wang if he was okay with that, and Van himself was thinking why his father let go of Espada, who had worked for him for several years, so easily. Anyway, D, who was strong in battle, and Espada, who was smart, were on his side. It couldn't help but be gratifying. Till asked what happened, because Van was smiling. He had not thought that this would happen, but now the trip abroad was really bothering him. Till he replied that he was glad that they were all riding with him. Till said that she wasn't the only maid who wanted to go with him, but the main factor in front of Marcia was that she was his personal maid. That's what she told Marcel when she was fighting for this place. They could have taken anyone they wanted, but life among the lovely maids was over. Marcia was a very busy man. He didn't have time to chat with the maids at all, and Yardo and Sesto didn't care about them at all. But Wang was different from them all. He always greeted them, sometimes treated them, even helped with the cleaning. They also practiced with a sword. All the maids are very fond of Wang. This also applied to Kamzin. Wang offered him to stay if he did not want to go. The slave contract could be changed or terminated. He could ask Marcia to look after him. Only now Kamzin replied that he had decided to devote his whole life to him. He would always serve him faithfully. Wang asked if he really liked him that much. Kamzin replied that he simply adored Van. It's time to leave. There were no family coats of arms on the carriages, because the father did not want anyone to know about his son's departure. For the past 2 years, Wang has been in the city a lot. He was sad to leave him. Wang was called out. It was the daughter of one of the guards. Van had to pretend that he didn't exist. The girl asked where he was going, but he pretended that he did not understand what she was talking about. Dee felt sad that they seemed to be criminals escaping so easily. He decided to tell everyone, despite the fact that his father asked not to do this. But the knight just spread his hands. This was the first time he had heard about it, and probably Dee was not aware of it. Now Dee was sleeping in the carriage. The knight said that he would definitely tell him. Everyone around was just shouting about Van's departure. Dee was awake. He was already riding a horse, saying that he needed to look around. People thanked him for everything, asked where he was going, and asked him to come back faster. Wang was worried. He didn't think it would be so sad to say goodbye. On the way, for the first time, he set up camp. They gave him fried meat. 2 groups of adventurers were hired. The first leader was a talented orthosith, who had been working for more than 20 years and communicated with many customers. Even in front of an 8-year-old child, he behaved very professionally. Man expressed his gratitude for the protection, but asked not to forget about the rest. He said he would come back later with a countdown. Phil said that even an adventurer could see his kindness, and she herself could say more than 100 different good things about him. Moving from one city to another, they set up camps. I managed to visit 4 cities, small and large. Because of the luggage, I had to move slowly. Every day they traveled from 50 to 100 kilometers, and in a week it turned out from 500 to 1,000. The Marquis's territory was huge. If they were in Japan, they would have already passed 4 prefectures, although he wasn't sure. Till informed me that they would be arriving soon. Wang decided to make a good impression. It was like transferring a supervisor from one precinct to another. The man leading the cart shouted that it was bad. It looked like someone had attacked the village. The village was attacked. It was either a raid by bandits or former mercenaries. That's life. Either you or you. The adventurer says that over time you get used to the battles. There was a high wooden fence around the village, but it was not effective against arrows. In battle, fighters in good defense are on the first line, and magicians are behind. When attacked, all that remains for the residents is to defend the village from the inside like a turtle. The adventurers asked for permission to join the battle. Working together, they could have done something. There were 4 to 50 opponents. Was it worth risking it all with such an advantage? Everyone understood that it was dangerous. There could be injuries and losses, but it would definitely work to recapture the village. The leader of the adventurers said that he has a rule not to endanger the lives of his people. If he had put his life on the line every time, he would have been in his grave by now. However, there were times when it was necessary to take risks, perhaps to give their lives. These were the first possessions of his lord, who, if not he, will draw the sword from the scabbard. He was a noble knight, but the adventurer was not willing to take the risk even if they had paid more. He asked them one thing: if it got really hard to run. But the butler opposed it. There was little chance. There were about 20 magicians, and he and his 2 knights would die. Dee will die, and there will be no point in recapturing the village. He was also a magician of the 4 elements. He told them to count on his support. A plan was built. The wall from behind which the adventurers will attack. After they are noticed, the knights will strike from the side. If both attacks pass, you will be able to win. It remains to decide what to do with the magicians, and if there were archers, then everything will be even worse. The carriage in some places consisted of metal plates. After the first attack, it would be possible to leave. The only task is to attract the enemy. Wang tried to forbid them to carry out such a risky plan, but the butler was adamant. He asked at least now to be selfish. Immediately, he asked to become a bait, but Till immediately said that she was against it. She said that if he was the bait, she would personally go into battle with the enemy, just like Kamzan said he would go. But Wang was the master of this village, so he asked everyone to obey him. The adventurers were hired only to accompany them. They are not required to participate in combat operations. Espada is now retired. Having made such a contribution to the family, he could not possibly die. Dee and the others belong to the father and serve him. He won't like it if something happens to them. Till was like an older sister to him, with whom he spent a lot of time. He did not want to lose someone dear to him. He was pleased with Kamzan's feelings, but even if he was a slave, he could choose to die or not. Van will be happy to understand that he is living his life. They are ready to follow yes to those who were kicked out of the family and labeled unworthy. Such wonderful people shouldn't have died. Wang said he was giving orders without doing anything. He wants them to let him do something for himself. For this, he asks them all for forgiveness. Wang began to give instructions. To begin with, he will go ahead in a carriage. His men will come in from the side. He says that long-range attacks will be useless. If nothing worked out, he told me to run. Even if Van gets killed, it's not scary. The enemy did not know their names, which means that the Marquis would not be bothered. Everyone agreed, including the leader of the adventurers. This time, he was willing to put his life on the line. The adventurer girl said that she expected something different from the aristocrat. Those whom she had met before only scratched their tongues. Van even remembered their names. She was also willing to give her life for him. They were all thinking the same thing. In fact, Wang only remembered her name because she's cute. The knights served the Lord Marquis. Serving Wang now is the same as serving the future heir. They will protect him now as they would protect future families once. Espada told Van, after all this is over, to think about the responsibility that falls on the shoulders of the future heir. He was scary and frightening. He suggested using his strategy with the wall. Knights on the right, adventurers on the left. Those who could defend themselves stayed here. The old man quickly created walls. Such a magician would hardly work as a butler, but now he has. The adventurers talked among themselves because they could have refused the young aristocrat. But the head believed that he would become a great man. He couldn't die yet. He would like to make him king if possible. In these 2 weeks he has completely revised his views on the aristocrats. He did not know that there were such people among the aristocrats. During the time spent with him, he became very fond of Van. If he got into trouble, the head of the adventurers was ready to come to the rescue. He didn't know him then. He thought that this was an ordinary owner of the village, whose escort was another concern. That's what he thought. But when it came to fulfilling his responsibilities, Wang put his life on the line. Not only for the village and its inhabitants, but for the knights and for his personal slave. Even for the sake of adventurers' lives. I came up with a strategy in which none of them would have died, but in which he could have died himself. A small 8-year-old child. He thought it was weird, till and the adventurer girl hugged him, saying they would protect him if necessary. They were more like a family than his relatives. There was a battle going on. He wanted to help. Wang told them to get medicine and tools out of the carriage. The adventurers said they would cover them if it was too dangerous. The robbers relaxed their vigilance. There is no normal, healthy governance in small villages, so attacks end quickly enough. The command to continue firing was given. They talked among themselves, asking how many women there were in the village and were already looking forward to the holiday. But the bandits were in disarray. They continued to fire, not understanding where the walls came from in the distance. They were attacked from behind. The head of the adventurers noted that D and his knights easily cope with the task. D and his knights attacked from 2 sides. Here he is, the deputy head of the knights of the Ferdio family. The bandits took to flight, realizing that they had no chance of winning. They ran and shouted that they couldn't win. One of the strong bandits broke through to the wall. D was shouting for someone to stop him. It looks like the defense will have to meet him. The adventurer girl had already used her magic, and the head might not have time to help them. A warrior in heavy equipment was already nearby, and Wang recklessly rushed at him. He struck and knocked him down, and then he gave the command to keep your eyes open. After all, enemies can come running here to them. What was wrong with this child? The adventurer girl thought. A few still managed to escape, but the rest were defeated and there were no losses among the knights and adventurers. It was the best outcome. The adventurers said they would say goodbye to Wang as soon as they received the second half of the payment. But there was another idea. Stay here instead of paying. But the adventurers benefited from the order because it was on the way, so it was time for them to say goodbye. But some of them decided to stay anyway. They were told about the forests and mountains nearby, that they would be able to earn money here. The adventurer girl said that Wang did not look like an ordinary aristocrat. Any adult would envy his thinking. The head agreed, and then he would like to stay here. He was so little, but so smart. Not every adult aristocrat has become like this. On the surface, Wang seemed like an ordinary arrogant aristocrat. But as soon as he spoke, everything changed immediately. Another person, polite and not forced, cheerful and friendly in communicating with others. Although he is an aristocrat, he did not look down on others. The head had never seen such aristocrats. His magic was not suitable for combat at all. He was literally ready to die. He saved the girl when she was in danger. She wanted to repay him. The head would not have thought of such a thing as a child. Wang wielded the sword like an ordinary knight, and he wasn't even 10. The child is a mystery. He was considered the best aristocrat ever seen. They would like to see his territory when he becomes ruler. The adventurers decided to help him. Title asked Wang to put his life above their lives. She asked him to repeat it. His slave thought he should try harder. Well, Wang himself asked if he was okay. Till said that he was so young, but he had already managed to bring the girl to tears. Wang replied that he was honest with the girls, especially with those who are dear to him. The adventurer asked if he was an elf. As a child, elves are not very different from humans. Till has been with him since childhood. He was definitely human. She asked where he learned fencing. He pointed at D, saying that he had trained him. Despite his age, he said that he needed to train so that he would become stronger than him. Well, his training was of course handled by the butler Espada. His actions and swordsmanship saved her in a moment of danger. She thanked him and said she would never forget it. He was very charismatic for an aristocrat. It looks like the villagers have gathered at the gate, although it wasn't what they were waiting for, but everyone was finally there. It was the first meeting with the residents. You need to make a good impression. Wang went out to the people and introduced himself. He said his father sent him here, who has been running this area for a while now, including this village. From now on, Wang will rule her. He was approached by an elder whose name was Norda. He was glad that Wang and his company were helping the village. Van was glad to meet you. He said that he had heard rumors that no one in the village wanted to take over its management. Not the owners, not the soldiers. But from then on, Wang took command because he wanted to protect the village. The old man asked the guy to follow him to his house. He agreed with Wang's words. He began the story. 150 people once lived in the village. After several attacks, there were only 100 of them left. Today was the third attack. Everyone was different. Wang asked him why they had become the main target. In his opinion, this was due to the fact that the village was close to a hostile kingdom. During Count Ferdinand's time, border knights patrolled the border, but after the Lord's change, they stopped doing this. That's why they started fighting abroad. The former ruler had supporters in every city. It turns out that Wang's father appointed rulers only for big cities and forgot about small ones. Their situation is currently unknown. He put them aside. This small village is one that does not need to be protected. It pays almost no taxes. But still, Wang promised that from now on he would inform the elder about everything. There was no point in complaining, lamenting, or criticizing this country. It won't change anything. The Lord's son, Malaga, came up immediately. He had a healthy body and bright eyes, but with such a short temper, he had no future. He asked him to sit down. Wang started talking about how the nobility should be responsible. If you think about it, maybe the king left a flaw in the law. He said about 3 measures. Nothing can be changed by complaining about the kingdom. The first measure was to do something valuable so that the kingdom would see it and could not ignore it. The second is to regularly earn money and hire mercenaries. Well, the third is to reconstruct and develop the village ourselves. The residents were also thinking about such a plan. But not one of them can be done just like that. Being in such a remote place, it was difficult to profit from the extraction of wood or stone, due to the problems of transportation costs. However, due to poor education, it will be difficult for residents to produce products on which they could already earn money. So we need to reconstruct the village. After all, Van and his people appeared in it. He understood how difficult it was for them, but now that he has received an education, he is here, in order to do everything possible for the development of the village. Espada intervened. He started talking about the fact that Mr. is only 8, but he has already been entrusted with the management of the land. Many people consider him a gifted child for this reason. Deputy Knight Dai also put in a word. He said that he had come to protect them. He asked permission to join their squad. The residents did not understand why such dignitaries were in their village. It was like a dream. They finally realized that they wanted to help them. Wang was asked if he owns 4 elements. He stopped them, saying that he does not own more than 1. Therefore, it was not worth expecting combat power from him. First of all, it was necessary to strengthen the walls so that no one could get in. The fence was quite strong and high, but it was made of wood, which means it is resistant to fire. It was the same with the dwellings. He asked Espada for advice, and it was decided to use stones to increase the strength of the wall. Stones of all sizes were needed. A moat would also be useful to fence off robbers. The knights said they would do it, because for them it is not the first. It was also necessary to make several traps and prepare for an attack from the wall. Bows and arrows or stones were needed for the peasants. Ronda. They asked to gather all the villagers to greet and explain the plan. Wang said he would do everything he could for the village and thanked everyone for their support. Even though he was a child, there were smart and strong people behind him. They could fight back against the bandits who came. He motivated the residents to be strong to build a prosperous village. Wang looked like a politician now. Someone asked about taxes and what would happen to them. 30% of the production was a lot. Then Wang lowered them to 10% and said he could pay once. After all, the most important thing was a stable life. Residents will definitely be glad that Wang has lowered taxes. After all, there are cases when people sell children because of debts. Someone asked to call the knight's order for protection, but it was already too late to send them a message. It was a long time for them to wait for a decision, and they might not have come at all because of the distance. Wang understood the anger of the people, but at the moment, the Marquis did not have the people or the budget to protect such a huge territory. Even if the knights could be persuaded, they would be too few, they would not help in any way. We would have to pay for food, horses, and armor, but the costs for mercenaries would be even higher. Espada was asked to build a wall behind a wooden fence, so while he was with them, they could stand and strengthen the village. There weren't enough houses, so they lived in a wagon. The elder of the village of Ronda wanted to give them his house, but it was impossible to put it on the street. Up to this point, Wang had never complained that he owned production magic. He had never been so offended. But if you didn't have the magic of the 4 elements, then there was nothing you could do about it. When trying to talk to the residents, they were skeptical. Wang needed to gain their trust. He decided that even with the help of his magic, he would protect the village and make it a pleasant place to live. You couldn't just defend yourself. Ideally, it was to attack the enemy ourselves, if he hadn't attacked them earlier. Usually, magic bows and arrows are attacked from the walls. An attack from a low wall will not be as effective. Previously, spears were used to attack through gaps in the forest fortress. The enemies were in the same position now, which meant they could attack them with spears again. Wang said about the catapult, but Espada argued that the catapult is a siege weapon. It is not suitable for protection. The catapult shoots huge boulders, but it was difficult to determine exactly where they would fall, and it took a lot of time to charge it. But the fortress and observation towers are high enough and large enough to destroy them with its help. It was also decided to throw a box with small stones for a larger radius of destruction. Aim it at the gate and the attack will already become much more effective. And if you put a bottle of oil and set fire to the ground, it will become even easier. Espada asked who came up with such a mechanism. It was Van. Everyone around him still did not believe in his production magic, and he himself did not yet understand how to use it better. On the way here, he often used it to change the shapes of rocks and trees to train. Now was the time to show all that he had learned. They were still not sure if they could capture the village. The head of the adventurers said that he would stay in the village to hunt mythical creatures and earn extra money. They were walking through the forest and he said that he felt the presence of monsters nearby. Van was asked to cut down the nearest trees to get a better view. He was amazed at Ort's intuition. During the journey, he notices and destroys enemies that he did not even expect. But despite his skill, he still couldn't raise his level. Kamsin pointed out the trees to Wang so that he saw them, but so far it was not very successful. They were large and did not fit. Production magic could not be called simple. It was only necessary to create the wrong shape and it immediately became strange and fragile. The image should be small and detailed, down to the fibers of the tree. The fibers were divided into small pieces and knitted together, so they could transform into a wooden cube. The cube was made of wood, but it looked like it was made of plastic. The quality of these cubes was amazing. Wang called them fiber blocks. They were similar in structure to nanofiber. It was stronger than any tree in any processing. There were a lot of things that could be done with their help. Wang asked the guys to help with transferring them to the carriage. I brought something to the head of the adventurers. They started asking him what it was. After all, he went to the extraction of wood. It was something from the forest of a magical beast. He took the cube and said it was lighter and harder than he thought. Breaking it was a real challenge. Wang urged to try to do it. He struck the cube with his sword and with great force. There was only a dent in it. There was more than one fault. It was very strong. Even the stone broke, but this block didn't. Suddenly, Van seems to have found something useful. Abruptly, Van stopped working. It looks like the magic power has been exhausted. He didn't know if there were consequences. Magic had a complicated logic, but somehow he did it. Wang was trying to understand. How does magic work? He imagined a weapon, a sword, its metal, a pointed shape. He managed to create a sword. He gave it to Kamsin, till he also made a beautiful weapon. The weapon was powerful so that it couldn't be scratched or broken. Till thanked him. She said that she loves axes and is delighted with the hatchet that Wang gave her. He was glad that she liked it and said that he would make jewelry for him later. He didn't know how much magic power such an action consumed, but it should have improved his production magic. He could figure out how to use it in an unusual way. Surprisingly, the walls took shape once every half day. Dee turned to Wang, telling him that the Espada butler was a little crazy. Although he was actually a very good magician, Wang thought that he was being treated like a child. Although he was put on a par with Espada, Wang said that Espada is a good person. He supported the Marquis's family during difficult times for them. But he also seemed strange to the adventurer girl. Such magicians, in her opinion, were usually attracted by the army. If he were an adventurer, he would become an adventurer of the highest rank. Wang said he was glad Espada had followed him into retirement. For Wang, the future was as important as the past. He hoped that Espada would have a happy old age now. Van thought it was happiness, but Espada interrupted him. He said that Van was growing up before his eyes. Now, as a lord, he will have to take on all this burden and responsibility of this title. Over the past 3 days, Wang has not made any progress at all. But the most important thing now was to strengthen the village. Wang said that he would strengthen the gate. They asked him how he was going to do it. The adventurer took the initiative and undertook to help him. Wang thought that everyone around was a bit stupid. He's here to do everything with magic. The adventurer was taken aback. He admired Van, not understanding how he could do this with the help of magic. He said that no matter how hard Wang worked, he couldn't do anything with magic. He saw a tree. The process was similar to making blocks. All he was worried about was its weight. It was the key to defending against the enemy. For the first time, then he thought of making a heavy iron gate. Wang erected the gate, and everyone around was stunned, as in when he managed to rush through the people. Van did it. He asked Ortho to cut this door because it would immediately recover, and Wang asked him to spare no effort. He was confident and wanted to test its power. He asked Ortho to try his best. There was a scratch on the gate. It looks like wood was not a very suitable material. But everyone was very surprised. How did he manage to do that? It looks like Wang knew how to help them. At least I hoped so. He had to sleep in cramped rooms with only a sleeping bag. It was not very convenient. It was impossible even to wash. On the way to the village, they stopped for the night. But even upon arrival, they had to sleep in not the best conditions. Wang was a noble, but now he felt like an adventurer. Kamzin and Till were cleaning up, greeting Wang. He wished them good morning. Van was fine. Unlike the two of them, they were too exhausted. It was impossible to allow this to continue. Before starting to equip the village, it was necessary to provide it with clothes, food, and shelter. It was necessary to try to create a house. Wang asked Kamzin to bring wooden blocks. The elder approached Wang and asked what he was doing. He said he wanted to build a house on this site. The elder asked if it was safe at all, and whether this area is suitable for such a thing. It was the center of the village, and Wang's mansion would look great here, and the square could be made right there in the future. When they have free time, they could organize some kind of festival. Wang was strong enough, but would he be able to build something more than a house in the future? Kamzin and Till could live in it, and Dee and the knights could live in another house. First you need to build 4 beams, and then decide on the size. You need to present a column and insert it into the ground. The bigger it is, the better. Then the floor and walls, and after that it would be possible to create a roof. There are also internal walls. Van imagined him less in his head. Now it turned out to be quite large. All the blocks were used up, but he succeeded. The house had a kitchen, a toilet, 1 large bedroom and a second smaller one, as well as 2 empty rooms that Van was thinking about what to do with. Otherwise Espada will be angry. He made shutters on the windows, thinking about what he would need to learn from the merchants about quartz sand. Van didn't even know if his house was too big. Espada thought he was even too small, but it was the largest mansion in the area. The material did not look like wood at all and looked just fine. It was incredible, a house in a second. Van's magic reminded the guys of the magic of kings. Van found it interesting, but he still thought attacking magic was better and more interesting. But Till argued, saying he was wrong. Residents should feel like they are behind a wall behind their lord. She said that she would rather live in the city of Wang than in the city of Marquis. Espada said that Wang was right, but only during the war. In peacetime, residents needed a person who would make their lives better. Espada could not name a person who would be better suited for this role than Wang. Till and Kamzin said they would always follow him. The adventurers were stunned when they saw the house built with the help of magic. After all, just a couple of minutes ago, he was not here. Wang said that if they could get more wood, they would be able to build houses for everyone. Ortho told them to use the wagons so that everything would be ready by noon. The usual relaxed atmosphere was gone. He ordered the guys to go into the forest, so that he would cut down trees and they would carry them on carts. Why did they need a house if they already lived here? An elder came up and was informed about Wang's ability to build houses. Someone has a leaking roof, someone has a collapsed floor, and someone has a rotten door. Everyone needed Van's help. As he thought, one house will not do, but their houses were really frail. He asked everyone to get in line. Wang said he would provide them with new housing. If his magic could make people happy, then he had no choice.